having the tools in our toolkit, in our arsenal, to consciously and compassionately communicate makes such a difference with the outcomes that we get, for sure, but also how we show up and how we feel.
And we tend to come together with someone who has a different style than ours because we see something in them that we wish that we had more so in ourselves, so we're attracted to it. Yeah. And then that works in the beginning, and then there starts to become problems because we're not that way and they are that way, and vice versa. What I hear from most men is they don't feel desired or respected or appreciated. And what I hear from most women is they don't feel chosen.
I'm Coach Des, mindset motivator and lifestyle entrepreneur. My mission is to help you crush your self-limiting beliefs and embrace being unapologetically you. The Born Unbreakable podcast brings you inspirational stories from all over the world that will empower you to unlock your unbreakable spirit. I'd love to partner with you on your next breakthrough. Go to bornunbreakable.com to schedule a free transformational call. Action begins today.
Welcome to the Born Unbreakable podcast. I'm your host, Coach Des, and I have an episode today that I've been looking forward to very much because I have the honor and the pleasure to have a friend, someone I know and someone I adore on the show. So I want to tell you about Dr. Heather Browne because we met in a unique way. Our journeys crossed one another through a writing program that we decided to embark on, which has been such a roller coaster ride of joy and all the other emotions that you can expect if embarking on a journey like that. And we did that, believe it or not, it's been almost a year ago. So we've gone through the writing process. We're now going through a publishing process. We work with an amazing coach, Ashley Mansour. I like to find every opportunity to shout out Ashley. And so I was very much attracted to Dr. Browne because of what she does. She's a psychotherapist. She's a couples therapist. So I get excited about that because I know a lot of people are always interested in relationships and how to make them better. Either A, finding one that is a healthy one, or strengthening one that you might be in. So I think that's just such a topic that we can, certainly delve into. And she's a poet. And she's quite the TikToker as well. So we'll get all that information later. But anyways, I can rave and rave. But thank you so much for being on the show today.
I have been looking forward to this since the moment I met you. I knew I would be on your podcast at some point. Your heart is so beautiful. Your grit is so powerful. And your message is really touching and inspirational. So I am honored. And yes, meeting in Ashley's program has just been a delight to walk this journey with you and with Ashley.
It is. I remember feeling like when we were going through the program, this sensation of if you really want to get in touch and know who you are, write a book. Oh my gosh. It's such a revealing process because of the series of emotions that you go through, and what you learn along the way. And I think that there were a lot of gifts through the process that I wasn't expecting, I guess is maybe the best way to say that. Like I knew it was going to be great. I knew we were going to learn. I just think there was bonus things that I wasn't anticipating in terms of your own personal growth. That was a nice, sprinkles on the cake.
Well, and I was amazed at how things would come up in life that would, at least for me, and I think for a lot of us, kind of challenge what you were writing about and really looking at do you know what you're saying? Is this really accurate? So yeah, the process was really powerful and profound and stirring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one of the things that strike me, and that's where I would love to start with you, is the fact that we all have a story, right? and it's unique to us. And each of us have that gift of sharing that with the world and helping other people. But it takes time to find the strength, the power, the conviction of what that can do when you share your story. So I'd love to take this time for the audience to get to learn about your story and then what led you down this path to wanting to go into psychotherapy.
I'd be honored. Well, like most healers, gone through some difficult times. I was born into a family where my mom was a paranoid schizophrenic, and I'm going to be 60 next month. So it wasn't at a time where mental health was really addressed or talked about. And so I just knew something was very wrong compared to other moms, but I didn't really know quite what it was. She did end up killing herself when I was 16. And in that process, I became very, very much aware that I wanted to help people in their journeys and also help people be able to do life in the best way that they could in honoring themselves and their message. And so it catapulted a deep need for me to look within myself and do a lot of work, but also a desire to really help others. And one of the biggest, my mom was amazing and unbelievably hard both. I like to say she was tragically elegant. But one of the biggest gifts I got out of her being my mom is that when you live with someone who doesn't live completely within this reality, you realize that everyone has different realities. And so because of that, the way I have approached life, and certainly the way I approach therapy with couples, is very, very different, because I don't need you to believe my reality. I just need to not negate yours. And I need to ask you to not negate mine. And so that gift, which my mom gave me from my experience of living as her child, has been unbelievably beneficial. I have a TEDx coming out in September that's based upon this. And the whole premise of my therapy is that. And what's beautiful is it's honoring and it's embracing. It's inclusive. It's not divisive. And the challenge for so many of us in relationship is the divisiveness, the fighting, the arguing. Well, you've got to be on my side. You got to have my back. But there's a place of, well, what about my back then? Like, who's helping me? And so there's we lose the other.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by this because I feel like relationships are always the hot topic. Truly, I mean, people who have loving, thriving relationships that you adore and admire, and the opposite, right? People who are striving to find a relationship, healing from broken, relationships or things that they need to work on. And, there's so many options that you can go into therapy with. And I've been blessed to meet people who do different kinds of therapy. Why relationships for you? What attracted you to get into that niche?
Well, isn't that what life is? Life is relating. How do I live in this body, in this mind, in this heart, on this earth with these other people? I mean, everything is about how we relate within ourselves, how we relate to our environment, how we relate to others. So to me, it's also the beauty of creation in that, because it's the two people and what do you make in this moment? A lot of it came from having a mom who chose to not stay here. And then I was disowned by my dad. So I was on my own at 17 to do life on my own after not really being parented cohesively as a child. And so the idea of relating to others became very important, and finding who are the people that do want to embrace you and be a part of your life, and how do you culture relating? How do you really develop a deeper and deeper and deeper love and respect for other people? And what's been fascinating with this being my lifelong path is I would think, well, in that case, like the whole world would embrace you, the whole world would love you. And oh no, because when you say, like, I will love you as you are, it creates a little challenge in somebody else who's not wanting to do that within you. And so there actually have been more times where there have been more challenges with division.
Yeah.
Which then becomes another place to say, okay, that is a choice that you are to make because you feel that's best for you, not what I want, but you need to take care of you. And so I'll respect that. Which then takes you to a deeper place back to relating with yourself. So it's an in and out dance. But to me, it's the beauty of life. I feel like it's why I'm here, is to enjoy, grow, learn, share, challenge, up level.
Well, I'm curious because you mentioned this, and I wonder how much this has evolved through the years, because I think many people can potentially relate to this about a parent that disowns you or makes the decision that, okay, you're going to do your thing and I'm going to go over here. How is that for you today? What through the years, like, did that ever change, evolve, or did that stay the same?
Oh no. And it continues to change, because if your heart changes, then it changes. And I'm not someone who wants to keep my heart in a place of hurt, anger, sadness, resentment, feeling abandoned, what have you. So I did choose to ask my father to step back into my life, though it was shallow, but I didn't want to be in this world without any family. So that did happen. But I think we also go through it in there's little mini challenges of that. When there's an argument, you don't talk to somebody for a week, or, you don't return their phone call. So sometimes it's a huge separation, and sometimes it's just a short one. But I think it's really looking at that and deciding, well, how do I choose to respond? I have a hard time with the word abandonment. And I challenge people on it, because I say they're really, most times when we use the word abandonment, it's not really abandoned. It's left. I don't even think my mom abandoned me. She left because she could not live within her body. She could not live within her mind. And it was too hard for her. Now, in that essence, is she not here? And am I abandoned of motherhood? A mother. Yeah, but the purpose of it wasn't to abandon me. Very rarely does somebody literally say, I want nothing to do with you. I never want to see you again. I'm stepping out of your life, and you have no response. Most times there's a little bit of dialogue. And I think we make our situation so much harder with the word choice we use. It's like someone coming to my office and saying they're PTSD because their boyfriend left them. And I'm like, no, PTSD is like, that's Las Vegas and, and gunshot, or children in McDonald's, being obliterated. PTSD isn't some of the natural things that we go through in life, but we're choosing to rev up in some places what's going on for us. And I think it's unfortunate, because it doesn't leave us any place to really be recognized for when it is something really horrific. And then there's also the place of, if I want to call, like, if you talk about trauma bond, and I'm like, oh, don't, how about, like, free yourself up from not tying yourself to that trauma? Like, you're not in it now, but now you got to deal with the repercussions of it. I think we are largely disempowering ourselves currently in the choices that we make, the words that we say. Imposter syndrome. I wrote a piece, like, let me rip the glasses off of imposter syndrome, because I decided to decide it wasn't a reality for me.
Yeah.
And so there's a place for us to decide, well, who's in charge here? Am I in charge of my thought process and my life? Or am I going to say, oh, well, because this happens for you, it happens for me, or because you're putting this word to it, I'll put this word to it.
Yeah.
It all comes down to the choices that we have of how we want to show up for ourselves and how we want to feel about our life. And we're not going to like everything that everyone else does to us or around us.
Well, and I think that sense of self, that's why that's so important, because you get to choose. You get to be the creator, the divinity, the painter of that canvas. And words do matter.
Yes.
There's many people I know who choose the most egregious words about themselves. That is, they live it, they emanate it, and there's people who choose to wake up with affirmations and the kind of mindset that continues to push them forward despite their adversities. So that something that what seems simple can change everything, the trajectory of your life and the way you live it and the way you feel as you're living it.
It's huge.
I'm curious, what are some of the biggest challenges in communication that you've seen as you've worked with couples?
The biggest one is an inability to listen to the other. Because if you think about your arguments, what we all say is, you're not listening to me. Mm-hmm. And so with that being a truth, with both of us not feeling heard, with both of us not feeling recognized, I take a step back from that and say, well, let's create a different foundation. Mm-hmm. Let's set this up differently. So we are going to both listen. We are going to make certain it's a good time. So there's a couple of caveats that I use in counseling for couples, but it's really for anybody. And what I say is, why are you having this conversation? Why do you want to have this conversation? If you don't know what the purpose is or what the outcome is that you want, you need to not step in. And most of us don't do that. We just open our mouth and just start blathering out anything. If I want you to love me saying, what the hell are you doing? I hate it when you do this, is not the best way to start. But that's what most of us do. But if my thought is, I really want you to love me and I want you to respect me, then I need to approach it differently. Mm-hmm. So what is it that you're wanting out of this conversation? Where are you wanting it to go? Then it's also important to ask yourself, is this conversation going to benefit the relationship or the other person? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is no, you don't yet know how to bring it up. Third, are you willing to listen to their responses no matter what it is? And if that's a no, then it's a lecture or it's an argument. It's really not a conversation. And then the fourth, which is huge, is this a good time? Mm. We think because we want to talk about it, we should talk about it. Like, well, I need to talk about it. But the other person might be engaged in something, might have something they need to deal with. And then I had an awareness one day in therapy when this woman came to her husband with something she had decided was paramount for them to do. She did all this research. She thought about it for a long time. And when she came to him, she said, this is what we need to do. Boom, 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 boom. We're moving the kids out of the school. Da, 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 da. And he was like, wait, what? We don't realize that all that pre-thought process doesn't have it. So when we come to them, they might not have ever thought about it. So it's important to say, do you have a good time? I'd like to talk about changing the children's schools. What? Yeah, I've done a lot of research. Why don't you think about it too? Let's go through the pluses and minuses, because that way the person is somewhat on level with you to have that conversation. Otherwise, they feel kind of sideswiped, and they can't think of what they want to say, and they're kind of stumbling, and it doesn't give you a really helpful conversation.
Yeah. And I think you bring up something that is just so paramount around listening. And that's this, it is like a yin and a yang. It's kind of like being on a teeter-totter and it's going up and down. It's your turn, it's my turn, right? And it's like when you have the floor, there's just everything you want this person to understand. But to your point, if they're not in the right state of mind, if they don't feel prepared for that, emotionally, mentally, then it could be very unsuccessful, despite perhaps their great interest in hearing everything that you have to say about something. So I think pausing and reflecting, and especially when it's something that, and it's funny. I think about this counterintuitive kind of stuff, right? Like, for anybody that's listening, that's familiar with, either in a job or in school, before something important, you prepare, right? Like if you're writing a paper, you stay up, you do your research, you write your paper. Before a test, you stay up, you study, you take your test. But then it's like when we get into these situations of life, you don't prepare. You're just like going in guns blazing. And, there's, I'm not saying write, a 20-page bullet point thing before every time you have a conversation, but there's some forethought that can help to ensure that it is really the right kind of environment to engage productively and in a connected way, where you really genuinely are. And I think the other thing is like the difference between listening to understand versus listening to respond. Like, I'm just waiting for you to be quiet so I can get my turn, which means you're not really listening because you're just trying to figure out how to respond to maybe some point that you disagree with or something like that. So that art is not easy if you haven't done some practice and maybe, gotten some feedback.
I agree. What I tell people a lot of times is when you go to the buffet, you take your plate and you say, oh, I'll have some mashed potatoes here, and I'll have some chicken here, and I'll have some chocolate cake here. We don't just put up our plate, just kind of go whack, and here's your buffet. A conversation is the same. There's placement. There's space between. And so what I always say to people is, where is it you're wanting to go? And let's talk about that. So what I have my couple say, or people say, you're really important to me. And this is a really important conversation also. I want to make certain that you're really important to me. And so what can I do to help with that? And at any point in this conversation, if you're starting to think that's not the case, let's slow it down.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do to help you see I am in this with you? For some people, it'll be a hug first, or to pray first, or a hand on a knee. When my kids were frustrated and they would come and say, like, we have to talk, I'd say, absolutely. And I'd say, could I say one thing first? And they would always say yes. And I'd say, I want you to know I love you so much. And they'd go, Mom! I'm like, come here. And they would get face to face. I'm like, okay, what do you need? What can I do? What's hurting? Most times we're upset because we don't think we're important. So if you start a conversation, I hate that you do this, you always do this, the other person doesn't feel important. But if you start off with, you're really important to me. And I have a really hard time with the fact that you never put your clothes in the laundry hamper. And I know you don't have to, but it really bugs me. Is there some way we could change this up?
Yeah.
And then try to work together. The person doesn't need to become who you want them to become for you to make it easy for you. But there is a place of, you are important to me. And since this is hard for you to live in this room with dirty socks everywhere, could I be a little bit more mindful of you? Yeah, maybe I have a laundry basket in every room because I like to take my clothes off wherever I go. What can we do to help with this? Because if you're saying we're partners, then you're partners. And there's places of figuring out how do you work it out together. We don't do that very well.
No, we really don't.
And we forget that. What I always told myself with Ted, I'm a widow. And so what I would tell myself with him, whenever there was a wobble, I'd say, he really wants you to feel loved always. And he really wants you to love him always. And then I kind of go, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm totally not doing that. I'm like, okay, well, no wonder you're not feeling it from him. The truth is, when we go into relationship, we pretty much want it to work.
Yeah.
So if we remember that,
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns into, well, what can I do? What can you do to try to help both of us stay in that place of loving the other and knowing we do want this to work? And then also looking at the places where it doesn't work from a
Yeah.
growth mindset of, and this is what I used to say to Ted and to others, like, I'm about to learn how to love you so much better right now. Just wait, just wait, just wait, just wait. Like, we're going to love each other so much better in a second. Are you ready?
Oh, right. Who's not ready for that?
And then you say, okay, so I have a hard time with this. Okay, well, let's change it up because I don't want you to have a hard time. I want you to want to like jump my bones. So
Right.
there's a place of turning it from complaint, argument, attack to we could change this. I look at resistance very differently than most people. I look at it as this incredible opportunity to figure out what could be done better, smoother, safer, more lubricated. It's a wealth of information. And what I always tell clients is come to your partner and say, do I have permission to share something with you?
Yeah.
First. And then if they say yes, say, wonderful. I want you to know I am sharing this with love. Can you receive it with love? And there's a little moment there of can they not? But when they're ready, okay. And then I always say, you don't have to accept it. It's just my thought, my belief. But I want to share this with you.
Mm-hmm.
When you offer insight, request with compassion, it's very different than demand, attack, criticize. It's a request. Get to be you. I can just request you to be a little bit different to make it a little easier.
Right. You know, and I've heard some different ways to say that, like somebody making an emotional bid, you know, to be heard, to be listened to. So there are a lot of semantics that you can, you know, think through that doesn't sound defensive, accusatory, angry, and all of the above. You know, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask about sometimes things just don't work. Right? Like the reason many people come to therapy is because they're trying to understand themselves, they're trying to improve, and they're trying to improve together. Now, it's not always the case that improvement may occur in just this wonderful synergy and in this aligned path. How do you facilitate those conversations where people are making the decision to communicate better, but maybe it's not best to be in the relationship any longer in a couple's way?
Well, they'll normally bring it up because there are couples that stay together that, in my opinion, I think, dear Lord, this is so hard, so tumultuous. Why would you? But they choose to. And my role isn't to decide, do you stay together or not? My role is, how do I help you with the fact if you are staying? I will step in if it seems like it is unsafe. Then I do, because I feel like I have the need to do that in protection. But when they'll bring it up and they say, you know, I just don't know, like if this is worth it, they'll say a lot of times, and I'll say, well, like, let's explore that.
Yeah.
What's not going on that you really wish was, or what is going on that you just aren't willing to still deal with. There's a conversation there that's really important. And people will often say, well, when do I know if I'm done? And I say, well, you're asking that question, so there's a part of you that feels like you're getting close. You're also asking that question because you don't think you're quite there yet. And you're coming to me to find that clarity. So we need to be careful here. What is it that would make you done? And how do we try to protect that from happening unless we can't? And what is it that could shift it a little bit? Something that's fascinating is I'll work with someone, we'll come up with a new way that they're going to do something. They're all excited. And then oftentimes one of the people will say is, yeah, well, that's not going to happen. And I just kind of go, why did you just destroy everything I just laid down? And then they'll say, well, it has never happened so far, so why would I think it would happen now? And I'm like, because you're on my couch
Yes.
trying to learn to do something other than what you have always done. And this is a new moment. So we could try a different way. You both just agreed that you would.
Right.
Why are you shooting yourself in the foot? I had a woman whose husband did not attend to her with adoration in the way that she wanted. And he got it. And he said, okay, so I'm going to text you in the morning and I'm going to call you at lunch. He came up with all these things. And then she goes, well, only if you want to. And I went, no, he doesn't want to at all. He doesn't want to, or he would have. And the reason you're here is because he didn't want to.
That's the point.
Trying to love you in the way that you want him to love you. And now you're saying, but he has to love doing it? No, he doesn't. He just has to love you enough to care enough that you want it. Would you please just say thank you? She started laughing. She's like, what am I doing? And I'm like, throwing away the love you're just about to receive.
Perpetuating the status quo.
The poor guy was like, what do I do? I'm like, you be attentive, you be adorable, you be darling. And we're going to see if she can receive. And then that's the big place of discussion. Mm-hmm. Do you let yourself receive? A lot of us don't. We think we do, but we really don't. And so a lot of times it's not that the person's not trying to love us. Mm-hmm. It's that we're not engaging with them in a way to receive their love. I used to like these little candy bars called Payday. It's like a salted nut roll.
Yeah.
I used to love them. And so one day, Ted, my late husband, came home with a whole fun-sized bag of them. Idiotically, I literally said to him, what's this? And he said, your favorite. Now, I'm a therapist. What was my response? No, I don't really like those that much anymore. I like Snickers. His whole face fell. And then what did I do? Like most people who just realize they have like just hurt the person they love. I'm like, but let's have one. Let's have one, because I haven't had one in a long time. And he was like, no. I could have just said, oh my gosh, thank you. This is perfect for us to give to the kids at Halloween so I don't eat the whole bag by myself. And he would have been so happy. We don't receive love when it's given to us in a way that's not necessarily the way we want it.
Right.
And then we say, you don't love me. Oh, heck yeah, you do. He was loving me with Payday candy bars, which was so thoughtful. Mm-hmm. I wanted Snickers. Yeah. So there's two layers. Are you loving me? Yeah. Are you loving me in the way that I want to be loved? Maybe not. And then that's something for me to address with you.
Mm-hmm. I do see that come up often, and people have gravitated towards something like love languages to create a common ground, because, and it's so apparent in relationships that people have different styles of how they want adoration, love, attention, affection, and sometimes their partner is completely different. They just don't think about it that way. And so finding a common ground, I think, is important, because it is easy to feel like you're not being loved if it's not in the way that you want.
Yeah. And there's also an interesting place too, that it goes further, that when you are, and that pot is full, because we're humans and we always want more, then we want a different pot. In the beginning, you wanted a text from that person. Mm-hmm. Then you wanted a phone call.
Yeah.
Then you just wanted to meet them. Like, it could be for water, it could be free.
Yeah.
And then it turns into, and you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, because we actually are receiving so much. Mm-hmm. And then we keep wanting more and more and more. And so there's the place of recognizing, as humans, that is part of who we are. We're creators. We're manifestors. So we do want to keep up leveling and doing more and more. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's so important to not negate all that has been done. I had a couple come one time, the very first session, and they literally said they had nothing. They were just sitting arms crossed and all mad and didn't want to be there. And I said, well, it looks like you guys don't really appreciate each other. And they said, there's nothing to appreciate. And I said, I don't even know you, but I can come up with at least 12. And they said, oh, go ahead. You're both in my office trying to work on your relationship.
You can get in there.
Somehow you got here. So you either can walk, or you have a bike, or you have a car. You are wearing clothes. You're paying me, so you've got money. You have a partner. I mean, I just kept, and they started laughing. And I'm like, why would you choose to not care about all the things that you do and fixate on that one thing that you don't? But you did this. Yeah, you did this and this and this and this, but. And that's what we do so much of the time.
Gosh, we do that, don't we?
Yeah.
It's like there's 80 to 90% of all this stuff that's going well. And boy, that 10% is like, yeah, but it would be better if.
Well, and we can't even say that, but with different energy. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. We're like at 90%. You want to go for 91?
Yeah.
Totally different energy.
Totally.
So much of it is, what is the energy that you're in? And is it one that allows growth, hope, exploration?
Yeah.
You being responsible? Or is it one that discourages, shut down, closes off, negates?
Mm-hmm.
With my mom, there was a time where the helicopters were flying over the house and she thought the police were coming to get her. And she was really scared. And my dad just said, Jenny, you're crazy. That's all in your head. It's not going to happen. And I remember I was 12 and I thought, what does she need? She needs to feel safe. So I threw a blanket over her head and told her, like, they're not going to get you, mommy. And I held her until the helicopters had flown off. When she came out, she looked at me with eyes that said, you believe me, which I didn't. But I believe she believed her reality.
Yeah.
When we're willing to recognize that there's a way with compassion to care about the other person, to create a different connection, then you have a different conversation. But we start with conversation. And then we think the conversation is going to hopefully guide us to connection and compassion. But if you don't start the conversation off with compassion, it's pretty hard for compassion to come out of a demand, a request, a critique. So if we bring compassion as like that blue blanket over everything in our relationship, in our conversation, whether you decide to stay with the person or not, you're going to have a different experience of it. And if my thought is, I really do love you, I can't live with the fact that you are so OCD and I'm super chill and you need it regimented like this. And I get it. I can't do that. And I know I drive you up the wall because I'm so free spirit. I think we're just not best suited to be partners. Right. But I'm so honored to have you in my life and whatever we can be. Could we date but not live together? Like, then you can move into conversations of parts of us just don't jive.
Right.
Do we need to completely step out or do we rework this? I had a couple that literally didn't live together, but they were married.
I've heard of that.
And it kind of worked. Because they lived their personal lives in such a different personal space. And so when they would get together, it would be like in the backyard or in the front yard or out to dinner or for a walk. And they really wouldn't go in each other's houses because it created such frustration for them. But they wanted to be together. They just didn't live well together. Now, most of us won't do that.
Yeah.
Can't afford to, don't want to. But it's something to explore. There's possibilities.
I think that possibilities are endless. And I think one of the biggest revelations that I've had is around doing what works well for you and being present enough to accept that probably could look different than other people. We live in this society where it feels easier when you can fit into a construct that is common. Right? Because it creates, again, it's a common ground. Oh yeah, me too. This is how my relationship is, and then you're an alien if you choose to do something differently, right? So that married couple that lives separately, but it works for them, that's awesome. It works for them, right? And I think finding those solutions that make sense for you, even if it doesn't make sense in someone else's reality, is just fine. And so I think that's an important part of this process of understanding yourself and going to something like therapy so you can uncover that exploration even deeper, you know?
Well, and there's places that we're not aware of that we have thought processes based upon how we've been raised.
Mhm.
And so when you let yourself kind of explore what that is, well, why do I feel like you need to be continually by my side? Or why do I not want you to know what I'm doing? A lot of that comes out of, our attachment styles of how we were raised. And so when you have an exploration with your partner about how you're different, and we tend to come together with someone who has a different style than ours because we see something in them that we wish that we had more so in ourselves, so we're attracted to it. And then that works in the beginning, and then there starts to become problems because we're not that way and they are that way, and vice versa. How do you utilize that to stretch the two of you to grow in those areas where you're not, but also not lose those places where you really are wonderful?
Yeah.
And there's a lot to learning. How do I support you with the past you've had? I'll tell couples when I'm working with them, if you've ever been abused, if you've ever been molested, I need you to let your partner know. And they say, like, well, why should I have to do that? It's in the past. I'm like, it is. It's very much a part of you. And I'm not telling you have to go into detail, and you don't have to listen to what I say, but I do suggest you do. I was molested long, 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 long ago. But if I'm getting involved with someone, I always tell them, because there's a little part of little Heather that is still fearful of, will you be safe for me? Any man I meet.
Yeah.
If I start to, I'm like, oh, are you going to pressure me? Are you going to force me? Are you just going to care about sex? Like, are you going to try to take from me? It's still in there. And I've done a ton of work. And I know most men are not that way. But there's a part that I think it's important for us to recognize. I don't know if that little fear is ever going to completely go away with me. I'm almost 60.
Yeah.
And it happened a bazillion years ago. But because it's happened, it could again. And so there's that little place to let yourself honor. I'm trying to protect myself here. This is about me, not about you. But I need to protect myself here. And I do kind of need you to know it because I'm a little scared. And when you do, if you find someone who really is compassionate, they're going to care about that and then try to support you, whether that be, you were with someone who hit you. Well, when anger arises, you're going to be fearful. You might be hit because it's the body response. You're not saying you think that person you're with is an attacker or an abuser, but you're going to be a little bit fearful. And the place of healing is when that person knows that and loves you enough to say, like, hands off. Like, I'll never touch you like that. No, I'll be safe for you then to calm down. But otherwise we see them a little bit in the abuse that we've been through.
Right.
And the person then is really angry and upset that you see them that way. But it's not that you're seeing them that way. It's that it's a reality you've gone through and you're trying to see if they're different than that reality. And that's a really important, tender place. And a lot of people struggle there.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think sharing the honest truth and being vulnerable can be difficult, right? When you're getting to that place where you're emotionally naked with someone, you're inviting this level of trust, this intimacy that is not just for anybody. And so it does feel a little bit like you're giving a little bit more and more of yourself, and it can feel scary to reveal things that, maybe you haven't told anyone, or maybe, things like that. So I think it is important to be able to communicate, especially if it's a person that you have intentions to be with in a deep, loving, caring relationship.
There's something that I share with people that helps in that. Because the word vulnerable means I'm opening myself up to attack or injury. I really don't ever want to do that. So what I tell people, because we all say, oh, you have to be vulnerable with me. And I used to say that word too. Now what I say is open.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, I think it's important that I share with you a truth that happened in my life because I think it's going to help you understand a little bit more about me.
Mm.
Are you willing to receive that? So now I'm at the threshold.
Yeah.
And I wait to see if you step up to the threshold. And if you do, then we have an agreement together. If I just come to you and say, hey, I need to let you know that I was molested by my dad and this is what happened, and you're not in a place to receive it, then I could really be messing up an opportunity for you to love and care for me. But I also could be leaving myself vulnerable. And so I've changed my thought process about that. And I say, let me come to you and be open. And then from that place, we ascertain, is this the moment? Are you willing to? Do you want to? And if not, then I'm going to respect that. If so, then we both step in.
Yeah.
And then there becomes a place of holding, connecting, caring, which then makes it different.
Right.
So it's really beautiful. But if we go in with the idea of please don't hurt me, we're already not in the right place because we're not seeing the potential of the separation from our past.
Yeah.
Then you want to step back a little and go, I'm looking at you in a way that I really need to not be looking at you. Give me a second. Give me a second. And then move it. You're at the place of, okay, I'm willing to share with you.
Yeah. But that is that reflection of self and understanding that is critical to being able to advance meaningfully, right? In a
If
conversation.
you want to heal,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of pondering and exploring of who you are and how you've been hurt and how you want to move forward and what you need. And that is only up to you to figure out. No one else can figure that out. I can't tell you what it is that you need for you to feel safe, but I can ask you what it is. I can think it's a hug. And if you've been physically abused, it's 100% not a hug.
Yeah.
So we think, let me come and help you, but we need to come and help in the way that the other person can receive it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's so vital. Well, one of the important things that we acknowledged at the beginning of our time together is that you do have a book coming out.
Me too.
We want to know about it. What was the genesis of it? What's it about?
Well, I've been a therapist for 27 years. And for years, people have been asking me to write a book. And, could you put together your little nuggets from couples counseling and all of that? And so for about 6 years, I dabbled with it. And after 6 years, I had a couple of chapters and that was it. And I kept telling myself I'm writing my book and I kept not doing it. And so I decided to do an online program on communication, which I have. So my website, if anybody wants to look at it. And then I decided to do a TEDx because someone really urged me to do a TEDx. And then in that TEDx process, Cesar Cervantes, who's my coach for the TEDx, he connected me with Ashley Mansour. And he said, you need to meet her because your TEDx needs to be a book. And I said, okay. So I met with Ashley and we had this wonderful phone call and she said, oh yeah, you need to write this book. And I said, well, I'm in the middle of doing this online program and I'm doing a TEDx. So in 6 months, a year, I'll do it then. And I love her because she's incredibly loving and compassionate, but she also knows her stuff. So she said, well, it's taken you 6 years to get here. Where will you be 6 months from now? And I said, okay, I guess I'm signing up for your program. And so I signed up for Ashley's program, the TAP program. And it basically walks you through the whole process of how do you write your book and how do you approach writing a book, which I don't know why I didn't even think there was a technique for it or ways to do it, but I didn't. I just sat and would type when I typed. And so it completely revamped my whole way of looking at writing and writing my book. And I did it. And now I have sent it off to publishers and I have interest and I'm in the final process of deciding who will be the publisher of my book. And then it will be out. And it's a book on conscious, compassionate couples communication. And it has all my nuggets in it. And it's beautiful. And where it's different than other ones is I've written it as the therapist with 27 years of knowledge, but I've also written it as a widow. And I think that's a beautiful, sensitive place, because I will say, now go grab your partner's hand and look into their eyes. And I just know I wish I could do that. So go take a moment and love on each other. I don't want the focus to be about me, but it's very easy when you're in a relationship to think, do I stay? Do I really care? Do I really want to be in this? And coming from the other side, almost 9 years, there's no socks to pick up. There's no arguments to have. But I don't have any hug in the morning. I don't have any kisses. I haven't made love in forever. I don't have anyone doing for me. And that's not all great. So there's benefits to being single. There's beautiful benefits to being in a relationship. And my hope is that if someone wants to see where it can go, that I walk them through the myriad of places where you can really help it be so much better. And it comes down to connection, compassion, and conversation.
Wow, that is incredible.
Thank you.
I mean, it's, what I love about your book and the topic is it's timeless.
Yeah.
It's timeless. It really, people, and I keep coming back to this, whether you've been with someone for 6 months or you've been with them for 25 to 50 years, there's always things that, or bumps, I would say, in the road that you run into, or potentially even a crossroads. And I think having the tools in our toolkit, in our arsenal, to consciously and compassionately communicate makes such a difference with the outcomes that we get, for sure, but also how we show up and how we feel. I think about the relationships that I've had, and I've had 2 marriages, and it's like doing a postmortem. My ex-husband said that, and we have a really, really good relationship, but there was a lot of compassionate connection even after there was the decision for us to not, be together. But I think it was a different set of tools that I had compared to what was missing before, because it wasn't, as graceful when you're not really sure what tools to pull out, because they haven't been made available to you yet. Right. And so I think my big encouragement for anyone listening is to think about that for your relationship. It's kind of sharpening your saw. There's always something that we can do to enhance, to add, to consider. And even if you feel like it's fantastic, right?
Well, and we get into, what I'll hear from a lot of people is we're roommates. We're just roommates. Yeah. And that when you've been with someone for 25 years and they're the only person you're with physically, and in that way, romantically and emotionally, it can start to feel, meatloaf. And it's just the same thing all the time, and the body's the same, and you start to kind of take each other for granted. There's such a different way of approaching a relationship if you decide you're a gift to me. And I want today to be a gift that I share with you. And I want you to know how grateful I am that you're here today.
Yeah.
And then I get to share this time with you. Oh my gosh, that opens the door for passion. That opens the door for romance. It opens the door for exploration. What I hear from most men is they don't feel desired or respected or appreciated. And what I hear from most women is they don't feel chosen. If you know that, women want to feel chosen. Women want to feel safe. Yeah. Men need to feel appreciated, respected. Then are you doing something every single day to do that? When I tell couples, like, how long has it been since you've said, I'm so grateful to be here with you? And they look at me and say, oh, like, why are you not saying that every day?
Oh, wow.
I tell my kids, even though they're grown, every time we have a connection, thank you for being my child. So honored to be your mom. They're like, Mom. I'm like, I know. Like, I get to be your mom. I'm going to be madly in love someday again. And I'm going to say that to him every day. Like, I get you? Seriously?
Oh,
I really hope he says the same thing back. Like, I get you? I know. Like, how awesome is that?
it is
But
awesome.
just a decision to decide it's awesome. Otherwise, it's Joe. I get Joe. He's good. It's Joe.
He's he's okay.
You ever walk in the door to your dog and be like, "Oh, you're Hank. I've had you for 12 years, Hank." No, you're like, "Baby, I know I missed you too. Let's get a treat. Let's go for a walk." Like if we were to treat our partner the way we treat our dog, and I know people will say, "Well, they don't talk back," but okay, then work on the talking back part. But attention is so important. We want to feel important.
You want to feel important. You want to be seen. You want to feel heard.
Loved. Yeah.
So vital.
So vital. And to yourself too. Like I want to love me.
Well, your self-worth, right? How you value yourself. And again, because words matter, you hear enough of the wrong words and you start believing it's true. So you do have to create a healthy ecosystem to feel at your highest level of vibration and capability. And because that affects your ability to put love out there into the world, right? So I want to end on a couple of just quick questions to get your insights on. One of the themes that I wanted to harness and lean into this month, we're a little more than halfway through the year, and I was really thinking about perseverance, of just persevering with your, anything, goals, communication, relationships, because the beginning of everything is, this is awesome, right? Particularly in relationships. This is fantastic. Oh my gosh, we're having so much fun, and then it's like you said, okay, then, 10, 15, 20 years later, it's like, I don't know if this is so fun anymore. But what would you say about perseverance? And let's go ahead and put it on the lens of a relationship. How do you have perseverance when it's the long haul and it is different than those beginning, early stage, honeymoon vibes?
Part of it is recognizing that truth. It's easy when you say, I love an iris, and then they come with an iris. It's kind of easy. It's harder when you're going for those deeper conversations or the deeper challenges that you have. And so I would speak into that. Like, you're trusting me to go to a really important place here. And I want us to get through this differently. Mm-hmm. There's a place of, instead of fighting or arguing about where you are, to say, there's a reason we're here, but let's figure it out so we don't have to come here again. Someone said to me recently that they had relapsed. And they were really upset. And it wasn't with like addiction, but it was with a pattern of what they did. And they said, I lost everything that I've done, all that progress. And I said, no, you haven't. Let's look at it differently. It's not you relapsed back to where you were and now you haven't had any of that growth. But there's something that you had to retrieve. There's some reason you still thought that behavior, that action was going to work for you. Mm-hmm. Did you retrieve everything you needed to retrieve to no longer do that? If we allow ourselves to recognize we are right where we need to be, to either be blissfully happy or to figure out what we're doing that's keeping us from being blissfully happy, then the resilience is about that. We're halfway through the year. How are we doing? Like, where have we grown? What have we done? This has been brutal. Okay, so how can I love on you right now just to thank you for the fact that we have made it halfway through the year? This has been the hardest year. Mm-hmm. What do you need from me right now? Mm-hmm. Can I share with you what I need from you? There's a place of recognizing this present moment is vital to what has happened before, which has led you here. And then there's a whole bunch of choices. And so what I tell myself and everyone else is this thought, is this behavior serving you?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a thought you want to keep having? Is this a behavior you want to keep having? And if my answer is no, then I have to say, well, then Heather, you got a choice to make. You got to think a little bit of a different thought, or you got to stop doing that thing you keep doing, which is keeping you here. I know you want to not have to do it. Do I want to have to work out to lose 10 pounds? No, but if I want to lose 10 pounds, there's a lot of working out I got to do. So you have to ask yourself, which is it? Do I want to lose the 10 pounds, or do I want to be easy on myself? And if the answer is be easy on myself, then let go of the 10 pounds.
Right.
Part of our challenge with resilience is we've got a contradiction in our thought process, which then deters where we're going. So it's important to keep clarifying, like, we're still on the track to that, right? And we've done boom, 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 boom. What's worked? What hasn't? What can we commit to beyond this moment to get us a little further toward where we want to go? And that is a conversation to keep having with your partner. Absolutely. Especially if you're going through a tough time. Like, okay, so we cleaned out the one room. Okay, so do you have the energy to clean out some more? Do we need to take a massage? Like, how do we keep moving in the right direction without this becoming too hard for us?
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's continuous. This
Yes.
isn't like a one and done. This is an ongoing process.
Well,
I
every
love
moment's new.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. Now, what about a self-limiting belief? What's a self-limiting belief that you've had to overcome?
I'm not good enough. And it wasn't ever said to me, but it was implied by the fact that I don't remember my parents ever telling me they were proud of me.
Mm.
I don't remember it, so I don't think I got that. And my father would lie about me. So he told everybody that I was a 4.0. When I was in high school, 4.0 was the highest you could go. I was a 3.875. So people would be like, oh, you're the 4.0. And I'm like, no, I'm a 3.875. And they'd say, oh, well, that's still good. Oh, you're the varsity cheerleader or captain. No, I'm the head of the varsity flag team. Oh, well, that's still good. And so I kept getting this message of dad's lying about you. And I approached him. I said, like, why do you lie about me? He's like, oh, I'm just so thrilled with all the things that you've done. And I'm like, no, you're not talking about who I am. You're talking about some other kid. So I had to realize that was a belief that I had.
Mm.
And then I had to challenge what that is. And for me, it's completely subjective.
Yeah.
Why do you get to decide if I'm good enough? And what is good enough anyway?
Exactly.
I certainly wrestled with, like, will I be loved? Can I be loved? And that just came out of being on my own at 17. And then I had to realize that had to come from me. So the biggest ones I see are, I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I will screw everything up. I'm an F up. Like,
Yep.
those are the big ones. And so I ask people, well, how does this feel? And they always say, horrible. I'm like, because your soul, your heart doesn't want that for you.
Mm-mm.
The reason it feels bad is there's a little part of you that knows that isn't necessarily the truth, or it's not the truth that you want for yourself. Because otherwise it would just be like, okay, like, I'm blonde. I don't wrestle with that at all. Just is.
I just
But
is what
I'm not good enough. Every time I would think, I'd be like, oh, it hurt.
Yeah.
So I go to the side of, okay, what's that part of you that doesn't believe it? Let's strengthen that part. And why are we choosing to believe something that hurts you? Serve you? A limiting belief can be changed into a way that can help when you move it out of the limit and into movement.
Yeah.
I can do better. I could utilize my time more effectively. there's always a place to move it. And when we put a limitation upon ourselves, we're saying, it's like people who are perfectionistic, that's a limitation. That's saying this is as good as it can be. Oh, no. It can be beyond perfect because there's no such thing as perfect. So it's where's the movement beyond where this is? And that's a big place of healing for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think that's huge. Dr. Heather Browne, if there was a last piece of advice that you could give to anyone listening, what would it be?
Really check in on how you're feeling. Really check in. And whatever feelings that is, or that might be in that moment, ask yourself, like, does this serve me? Does this bless me? Does this honor me? Does this feel good? If it doesn't, there's a thought that you're having that is holding you back or is diminishing your joy. And this is your life. We only get one, being us. We spend a lot of time not living it. So are you really giving yourself the opportunities? And it doesn't have to be huge world travel and saving the world. It could simply be kind to people every day. Like, what is your purpose? And what do you let yourself do within that to feel fulfilled?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. How can people find you and keep up with you?
Oh, thank you. Easiest way is my website. So www.drheatherbrowne.com, Dr. Heather Browne. And all my social medias are on there, my programs, my contacts, my newsletter, the information on my TEDx and my book will be on there too. And my podcast. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'd love to hear. There's a whole bunch of freebies on my website as well. So grab them.
I love it. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for being a part of the journey. Thank you for being a part of this day. You know, I'm appreciating the present and being able to take in all the moments that make our days what they are. And you have been such a light. So I'm so glad
you have always been for me. From the first moment I met you, I thought, oh, this is someone I'd be honored to know in this life. So thank you for being that beautiful, beautiful spirit for me as well.
Oh, awesome. Well, I can't wait, because more is to come for us both, and we'll be talking about books and all kinds of other fun things. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so
much.
That's a beautiful one.
Dr. Heather Browne, I just adore her. I love her energy. I love her positivity. And I love her message around conversations and compassion. It's so important for us, and she is 100% right. It's all about relationships. They're everywhere and all the aspects of our lives. So the more we can improve on how we communicate in those relationships, the better off we will be. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, took some new tidbits. Absolutely be on the lookout for her book. I think it will add to your toolbox and be something that you may turn to more often than you think, because we're communicating often in many different relationships. And if you are someone who is in a couple, it bodes to have the right ways to communicate effectively. So I'm always open. I'm always in the business of looking for great resources that are going to uplift, inspire, and give me new ways of thinking and doing things. So I certainly hope the same for you. When you get Heather's book, keep up with her, follow her on social media. Dr. Heather Browne with an E. At the end of Browne.com is her website. So go there, follow. She's so funny. She does TikToks, and she is a smart, loving, kind, caring woman. And she just gives great energy. You know, who you choose to follow, if you are a social media person, makes a difference in your psychology. And the more you see that will fill your cup up versus make you angry, annoyed, and irritated, the better. So she is one of those people that will fill your cup up. So, as I always say, remember that you are your only limit. So take action today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in, for supporting me on the journey of life. We are all learning and we're all in this together. So tune in again next time. And I actually have an exciting announcement about some things that I'm going to be adding to the show, but I'm going to let you wait a little longer and find out as the next couple of episodes unfold. So gives you a little something to look forward to. So tune in so you can see what I'm adding to the Born Unbreakable podcast show.